What's up, you guys? Happy Monday. We're gonna give it a few minutes to see, make sure everyone can hear me. I'm also gonna be checking to make sure myself on Facebook, but you know, the normal logistics to see if I'm popping up, which I haven't popped up yet on my phone at least. So I know that means nobody knows I'm here. But we are recording this and we're gonna have this recording up for until Sunday. So you'll be able to watch this back until then. And then also we're gonna have it, the recording is saved on Facebook on Triathlon Obsessed until Sunday as well. All right, you guys. So we're just gonna give it a few minutes, see if anyone pops in here to say hello. Oh, good, there I am. So I do want to, would love to see if you could hear me. Yeah, so far, no one's here yet. So we're still gonna go ahead with the training, of course, whether, you know, whoever shows up. I know Monday's a busy day for most people. And I know last week was a short week because of the holiday. So I totally understand. But the good news is, like I said, you can record it, watch it back, the recording. But I do want to remind you that even if you are watching the recording back, I want you to participate, right? Because the whole purpose of this live is to interact with you. And I will be honest, I'm a little rusty with my lives just because it's been a few months since I've been here. I don't know if you guys know, but I rode my bike across the country in 8 days and it really kind of tired me out. So I got a little adrenal fatigued and thankfully I'm back and feeling good and motivated to help you guys and go live. We have stuff planned for every month the rest of the year. So you're going to be getting some great information. Hey, Art, how are you? Art is one of my older, not that you're old, Art, but oldest triathletes. We worked together, I don't know how many years ago, training for world championships. So what's on your agenda, Art? I'd love to know and be interactive, like I said. All right, you guys. So we're going to go ahead and get started just because of time. And of course, you guys know how much I like to start with being present and in the present moment. So I am going to ask you to, you know, maybe take your shoes off if you have shoes on. If not, go ahead and wiggle your toes in your shoes or wiggle your toes on the ground and go ahead and pick up your heels, pick up your toes, right? Be present in the present moment. And we're going to put one hand on our heart and one hand on our belly. And go ahead and let's do some breath work, right? So I just wanted to take, let's do 3 breaths. You're going to inhale and make sure both hands are moving. Your lower hand first, then your upper hand, right? And then exhale through your mouth. And I had a cool analogy. So I want you to inhale as if you're smelling a rose. And exhale as if you're blowing out gently a candle. Good job. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. And if you can, open your eyes and just look around the room and look at 3 things that have your attention. For me, I have a chair, the light, and my speaker. So do the same thing. And what that does is it grounds you in the present moment. Maybe also, you know, let me tell yourself what the temperature is in the room. My room is feeling just right. I was outside, which I love to be outside, but it was a little too warm for me. And then the last thing, we're going to do one more breath. And this time you're going to inhale presence and calm. And you're going to exhale a smile. All right, you guys, I'm super excited to be here for the next 4 days. So welcome and congratulations on making it here, right? So I do want to see if there's anyone here, and I'm trying to find the comments here, so I might need some help here. So go ahead and say hello if you are here. Claudia's here. Good. So please say hello. And, you know, as I said, the more you interact and engage with this live, you actually could win my goodie bag. So there is a reward for that, but also it just benefits you. You signed up, you registered. And I want to make sure everybody has the worksheet. If you did register, it's just kind of like a goals sheet that we use. I don't think you can see it with my background up, But it's going to be attached to the email after that you're going to receive today. And if you did register, there's still time to register. If you have not registered, you can just post in the comments, send me the worksheet, and we will register you for this event. And that way you can kind of play along with me, right? So the next 4 days is all about what I do with my athletes when we first start up together, right? Because there is sometimes a problem with not knowing what you don't know, right? So, triathlon interests you, you have an interest in the sport, or you're looking to get faster and stronger and do better, but you might not know what you don't know, right? So I always have this protocol. These 4 days, I'm going to be reviewing my protocol with you guys about how I start up with an athlete. So, and it's something that you can take away, right? And do it on your own. And then, of course, if you need any help, I will be here to help you every step of the way. So if you can, go ahead and let me know where you're from. And if you already know what your dream is, we're going to talk about how to dream big, but if you already know what it is, go ahead and post that. If you already know, you have a race picked out, you have a date, you have a distance. And don't worry if you don't know, because that's exactly what we're going to do today. Is we're going to kind of figure out, what is the ideal race distance for you, given your situation, where you live, your lifestyle, how many kids you have, how much free time you have. Anything is possible. Let's put that on the table. This dreaming session is what we're doing today. Is we're dreaming, and we're dreaming big, and everything that you desire is completely possible. But I'm also a big fan of reality. And, if you do have a dream of an Ironman, we're going to talk about, okay, do you have this certain amount of time set aside to train every day and for a certain period of time? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So if you already know what your dream is, and also if you're not local to Miami, I'd love to hear where you're from, because we are recruiting athletes that are out of town for my new online training program. So this is all going to be great information, whether you live here or not, and whether you train with me or not. You can apply this to your journey to get across the finish line in your next triathlon, whether it's your first one, your second one, or your 10th one. We always have these dreams to improve, right? But we got to know what the dream is and identify it, and really have it in front and center in our lifestyle on the daily, because life gets crazy. I kind of have a lot of athletes that say, okay, well, I'm not ready to start yet because of this, because of that, because of that. And all those things are never going away. The kids' schedules are never going away. The work projects are never going away. But that doesn't mean that you can't achieve the goal, right? It's just having a system and having a process and really committing, right? And so today is also about maybe making a commitment. So, okay, so I love our first goal is to reach sub 5 hours for a 70.3. So that's a half Ironman in 2 years. I love that goal. So Domingo, I'm going to call you out. I don't know you. I'm not sure if you're registered, but I would love to hear your goal. And this could be a goal for the next 8 weeks, the next 12 weeks, the next year, the next 2 years, like Ali so graciously shared with me. But I'd love to know what your goal is, if you know it already. And it's okay if you don't, because like I said, you might not know what you don't know. And again, don't forget the worksheet, because that's going to help us. So in today's training, we're actually going to think about, you're all here for triathlon. You're all here because you have this inkling in the back of your head, whether to go bigger, longer, or to even cross the finish line in your first one, right? So I wanted to maybe suggest some guidelines for the distance of triathlon that works best for you, okay? Because like I said, I believe in dreaming big, but I also believe in reality. And we're just going to tackle Ironman, even though might not be a goal for many of you yet. But Ironman is a big commitment. And there is a big level of frustration when someone comes to me and they say, I want to do an Ironman in 4 months or 6 months or a year. And I explain to them the amount of commitment that's required. And they're not able to hit that right now. The level of commitment, meaning time scheduling, right? And the amount of training per day, per week, per month, to get there, to get across the finish line safely, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing to realize that Ironman maybe isn't your reality in the next 6 months, but maybe next year, you know, that could be your reality. And right now you're ready for a sprint triathlon. And in my training philosophy, the more you race, the better athlete you become. You also have the less chance of, well, you have a better chance of getting faster, right? So once you start training long, it's very hard to get fast at the same time. So those are principles that even my Ironman athletes, I encourage them to race sprint. So it doesn't mean that Ironman dream isn't still there. It's just going to be put on a little bit of a timeline to really commit to the amount of time it takes, because there's nothing worse than committing to the race, paying for it, investing it, getting all the equipment, and then realizing that you just don't have the time to do it, right? You don't have the time to put in to be successful. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for me. It's frustrating for everybody involved, because we know that's your dream. That's your goal, right? Even your family might be, you know, involved, or hopefully is involved in the process and wants to see you succeed. But if you just don't have the time, then it's just really not realistic. So we're going to review right now for sprint distance triathlon. My program, and I believe that anybody at whatever level you are can cross the finish line between 6 and 8 weeks from the start date that you decide and commit to your training. And the training requires 5 days, 4 to 5 days minimum of training per week of about 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so that's pretty doable for pretty much everybody, right? So let's review that again. If you think sprint triathlon is your next distance and it will fit nicely into your lifestyle, 6 to 8 weeks is minimum. It can be done in 4, honestly, if you already are in shape. If you go to the gym regularly, you have some fitness, but if you're coming off the couch, I don't think that, I really think that you need at least 6 to 8 weeks. And then 5 days a week of training for 30 to 45 minutes a day. You can definitely start the race and get across the finish line safely with that amount of time. And that's really, really minimal if you think about it. And let's talk about that, because everybody has the same exact amount of time every single day. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time. Well, guess what? You have just as much time as me and everybody around you. It's your activity management that might need some work, right? But if you're super committed and you want to achieve this dream and this goal, you can make it happen. 5 days a week, 4 days minimum, 30 minutes a day. That's totally doable, right? So that's my suggestion for a sprint triathlon. Olympic distance, of course, does require a little bit more. So 8 to 12 weeks, right? It's a longer distance race. 5 to 6 days per week of training. And the training time is typically 45 minutes to up to an hour and a half. Okay, so it is longer, right? The race is longer. You don't want to show up to the race wondering if you're even going to finish. And honestly, even though I have athletes that do this, it puts everybody at risk. Okay, it doesn't put yourself at risk. And maybe you can get there and cross the finish line feeling terrible and struggling the entire way, but you also put other people at risk. The race director is at risk. The other athletes are at risk if you don't have the minimum amount of skill and fitness to get the job done. And this is the worst part, is it makes me sad because people that do this end up not enjoying the sport because they struggled so much, right? Sometimes it inspires them to really, and this is the part I like, it inspires them to really get going again. But a few times, I mean, less than 5, I would say on my hand, have people never come back after doing something like that. And I really recommend against showing up at a race start if you just don't have the skill and the fitness. Welcome, Dana. So let's hear, we're going to check in a couple goals. My goal is to cross the finish line at 70.3. Love it. So Heather wants to cross the finish line at 70.3 Cozumel and be greeted with a margarita. That is an awesome goal. Hey, Larry, what's up? All right. So Larry, I want to hear the goal. I know you have a big one coming up, so please share it. I'd love to hear it. Dana, if you already know what your goal is for the next 3 weeks, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, anything that's on your agenda that you already know about and have written down, I'd love to hear it. And if you don't have a goal, you know, that's what this is about this week. So we went over sprint distance triathlon, what the commitment is required time-wise, and then also Olympic. Now 70.3 or half Ironman. I recommend a minimum of 12 to 16 weeks, okay? And it's completely doable, even if your fitness is very, very low. But just know in long course racing, when you ramp up too quickly, you have a higher chance of injury. So that's why I prefer to have a little bit of extra time and get you going in the sprints and the Olympics, you know, for even 6 to 12 months, and then move you into half Ironman and Ironman. But don't get me wrong, like I have plenty of athletes that are like, I just want to have it. It's on my bucket list. I want to get it done. And thankfully it's possible. It's totally possible. But these are the minimums. So 12 to 16 weeks, 6 days a week of training, and between 60 minutes, so an hour to an hour and 20 minutes per day of those 6 days. That's kind of required to be successful and feel amazing across the finish line in a 70.3. And then finally, we have full Ironman. Now, I'm not going into ultra distance for these dreams, but those are totally possible. I've trained somebody for a double Ironman, and I do feel like it's not the healthiest thing to do these ultra events, but I do train athletes for endurance swimming, 8-mile races. We just had an 8-mile race swim event yesterday, 12-mile races for swimming around Key West. So I do believe in ultra distance to some extent, and it's totally possible if that's your dream. But today we're going to stick with the basics. So for Ironman, full Ironman, I recommend a minimum of 16 weeks. And that is saying that's 4 months. If you already have some kind of fitness. If you're coming from the couch, you definitely need more time than that 16 weeks. So it could be as many 2 to 3 months before that, you know, getting good at your sprints and Olympics, and then, you know, maybe moving into a half Ironman and then a full Ironman. But ideally 20 to 24 weeks is really a safe amount of time to get you ready for a full distance Ironman. Just because, like I said, there's going to be setbacks. The trajectory from your start point and your training to the end point and crossing the finish line is never a straight line up. There are always setbacks. I mean, that's just part of the program. It's just the way it works. Your body's doing 3 different sports. You have to modify your nutrition. You might get a cold. You might get the flu. Your kids might have a vacation that you have to go on. There's all these things. You could get an injury that we can totally manage and help you still get to the start line. But the trajectory from starting point to ending point Z is never a straight line. And if we have a little bit of cushion, so 4 months would be the minimum, and then ideally 5 to 6 months and even a year if you are coming from the couch. And with those training days, the days of the week are similar, you know, between 60 minutes and 90 minutes during the weekdays. And then on the weekends is when things start to ramp up. So does anybody have any questions about those 4 different distances? Those are the basic distances of triathlon. So just to let you guys know, so sprint is typically a 400 to, it can be like a 400 to a 750 yard swim with a 8-mile all the way up to an 18-mile bike and then a 5K. And then the Olympic is typically, or international, because they also have international distance, that's typically 1,000 to 1,500 yard swim. And then typically an 18 to 26 mile bike, depending on the course. And then typically a 10K is what you finish with. And then the half Ironman is a strict distance. And that is usually, it's 2,200 swim, a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 mile bike, and then a 13.1 mile run. And then of course the Ironman is double that. So it's 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a 26.2 marathon. And there are some Ironmans that have a little bit longer of a bike. Like I know Chattanooga has an 18-mile bike. So there's different, you know, there's different little variations on those. But typically those are the distances of the sprint, Olympic, half Ironman and Ironman. So if you guys have any questions on those, and if you have any realizations now, what it takes to achieve the goal that you had in your mind for a triathlon, have you decided on a distance that is ideal for you? And remember, it's a period of time. It's a block of time. It's not like, okay, I have to train this way for the rest of my life. And that's where I want to talk to you about your commitment, because it's not just you committing to the training. I want you to involve your whole family, because they are going to be missing you maybe when you're on those training rides on the weekends or those runs. And including ways to incorporate them is always a good idea, right? So the commitment is kind of the next thing. But let's stay focused on the dream and see Key West. Okay. So hours, if you're an aqua biker, actually, that's a great question. Thank you so much, Dana. So aqua bikers have a little bit of an advantage because they're removing one whole sport from the equation. And I can speak to this 100% because I have been an aqua biker for, years on and off in my triathlon training, because I was injured running. Right. So I loved aqua bike. I love to race. So when I got injured in running, and I was so sad that I couldn't race, and then they started having aqua bikes, I was very, very happy because they didn't used to have them when I first started. And so just to let you know, Dana, that's actually a benefit because you're taking one whole sport away, and you can actually have, you don't have to train as much because you don't have the run. Although running is one of the easiest things to put your shoes on and get out the door, for the swim, you have to get to the pool. And for the bike, you have to, have a place to ride or get on the trainer. So the amount of time, you could just cut it off by 1/3, right? So if timing is an issue, you could switch the sport to duathlon, right? So run, bike, run. Or you could do aqua bike, and they also have aquathlon, which is run, swim, run. Okay. So that's why I love USA Triathlon, because they've really done a great job of including more sports within the sport of triathlon. So I hope that answered your question, Dana. Yeah. And if Dana, do you have any goals now that I know you're not running, obviously, because you're doing aqua bike, but do you have an aqua bike in mind? And the cool thing about all of these events, obviously, is if it's your first time, you usually feel so good that you want to cross the finish line and you want to reach for the bigger goal, right? And I will tell you, you guys, I hope it's okay to share a little bit about my story, but I have been doing triathlons for 25 years. This is my 25th year in the sport. And I have had the opportunity to go to 3 different world championships. And I will tell you, it's pretty awesome to be representing the US in the sport of triathlon or aqua bike, because I did go to aqua bike world championships in Canada. So, today is about dreaming. So if that's your goal, to go to worlds, I will tell you, I am not the best runner, right? But I was able to go to worlds 2 times for short course triathlon. Because running isn't my strength, I chose the distance that I still had the advantage on the swim and the bike to be able to hold on to the run, right? So there's always a way to get there. I remember deciding that I wanted to get to world championships one summer, and I was like looking at the times that I needed to qualify for the sprint distance, and my run isn't that fast, right? So I had like a 23-minute, I think my fastest run off the bike is 23 minutes. And the girls were up at 21 minutes, right? But as I got older, the age helps. So as I got into my late 50s, it was more possible. And then I found draft legal sprint distance triathlon. And so that was my ticket in, because I was a really strong cyclist and a really strong swimmer. So I could come out of the water with the fast swimmers, and I am a great drafter, and I know how to ride the bike strategically. So then it was great because I got to go to Cozumel and represent the US there for world championships. So it's pretty cool. So the dream, it can be anything, and dreaming is super duper important. And that's why I want you to think about, even if maybe right now you don't have the time, right? Maybe you don't have the time that I just recommended. That doesn't mean you can't start. That doesn't mean you can't maybe start with one of the sports. If you have 3 of the sports and you want to do the triathlon, and maybe your swim is your weakest, that could be the thing that you start with right now. But I still want you to have the dream out there, the big one, the big hairy ass goal, right? BHAG. And I want you to have a date, right? I want you to put a date on the calendar or in your head for when you're going to achieve that goal, because it's super duper important. The speaker's turning off. Super duper important to dream big. And a lot of times when you put that dream out there and you write it down on a piece of paper and you put it front and center, the universe actually creates opportunities for you, right? So I believe that everything happens for a reason, but there's also free will, and you can change the trajectory of your own life. Every single thing is possible. So I know some of you guys are working. Okay, cool. So you're going to Team USA. Oh, in Abu Dhabi. Awesome. I have, I believe I have another athlete going there, Maria. So I think you might know her actually. So she's excited about going to Abu Dhabi too. That's going to be an insane course. I cannot wait to hear all about that race. What's up, Juan? How are you? I want to hear about your goal. What's your next goal for triathlon? I know you've been doing some sprints and Olympics. Are you ready for the next level? with your maybe going longer. Okay, so commitment. Now that you have the dream, it's really important to look at your commitment level. How important is this to you? And what's your big why, right? Because if you don't really have the why, sometimes you might have the goal and it might be 10 years before you even like start to take action on it. Hopefully not 10 years, right? But really, really asking yourself, am I ready to commit right now? And taking that leap, jumping off the bridge, right? To take that leap to say, okay, I'm going to stop saying I can't, and I'm going to do it, whatever it is. And even to the point, I'm going to bring up the whole running thing. Some people say, okay, well, I just can't run. Well, that's not really true a lot of times. And I'm here to tell you, I have helped so many people rehab and be able to run to a certain degree, no matter what level or how bad their joints are, because honestly, you can heal your joints. And I know that's not what the doctors tell you. And you go to the doctor and you say, oh, I run and I do triathlon. They say, oh, you got to stop that. Well, believe me, there have been so many athletes that have come to me and told me that. That's what the doctor said. And they've gone on to do multiple Ironmans after we have worked together and are done with that mindset. That's a limiter, because most of the time your body can heal from anything that you have going on. Believe me, I've had pretty much every injury known to man over my 25 years. But the good news is I've never had surgery to repair anything, because I always give my body the time that it needs. And I believe in physical therapy. Strength is so, so important, but it's also the power of the mind. There's a great book called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and he talks about how you can completely transform your entire body by what you believe. So don't let those injuries kind of hold you back in any way, because it's still possible. And like Dana, she's choosing to still stay in the sport, but just do the swim and the bike. So I love that, Dana, and way to go. So anybody else? Let me just check in real quick. All right, so so just to give you also a little heads up as far as the time, every day is going to be less than an hour. I think maybe tomorrow and Wednesday will be a little bit longer. So don't worry about this taking too much time. And this is, you signed up for a reason and you're here for a reason. So, like I said, take the time to participate, take the time to really think about your goal, think about the time you need to train, the trajectory, like, okay, so you actually still have a lot of time the rest of 2022 to still achieve your goal, right? You still have time to train for a 70.3. You still have time to train for an Olympic distance. You still have time to train for a sprint or an aqua bike, right? Those are all completely attainable. And if none of those resonate with you, how about a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, or even a marathon? I know we have the Miami Marathon coming up in the spring or winter, the end of January, and that's a big favorite. And it's a great thing to focus on one sport if you're not able to commit to the time that I recommended for the 3 sports or the 2 sports. So I'm here to tell you and be an advocate for your dream, and just know that anything is possible. But I want to know your why, right? So what is the reason? Why do you want to do a triathlon? So Ollie, you tell me you want that sub 5 hour half Ironman, but I want to know why. Heather, I want to know why you want that margarita. Why do you feel like you deserve that margarita? I already know, because Heather's already my athlete, but I want to know what your personal why is, if you're willing to share it. And you guys, if you don't feel like sharing on the chat, that's totally fine. You can totally respond to the email that I'm going to send right after this. And you can share it with me personally if it's something more personal. But I would love to know your why. And, I'm just going to share with you my why for being in the sport for as long as I have been. And my personal why is actually to show up and give you guys more, because I know the more that I race and train triathlon, the more I can give back to you. And honestly, after doing 300 plus triathlons, there does need to be a bigger why than just crossing the finish line. But don't get me wrong, I love the finish line. There's nothing better than that feeling. And every single time I race, I learn something more about myself, and it's even new. Can you believe it? After 25 years, it's still new to me, because of course my fitness level changes when I go big and go long, and then like ram, and now I'm coming back to short course, right? So your fitness level changes. But I love the sport of triathlon because it's just such an amazing way to stay in shape. I love being outside. So for me, running outside, swimming in the ocean, and even in the pool, water is so healing. Like swimming is definitely my favorite of the 3 sports, but don't get me wrong, I love them all equally, and they all have their benefits. And I love to cycle. I was worried about after riding 3,078 miles across the country. Of course, I did it on a 4-person team, so my total mileage was 750 miles. But even after that, I was worried I would not want to ride my bike anymore, but that was not true at all. I still love my bikes. I have several bikes, and I still love to ride. So for me, it's just a lifelong sport, and it's a lifestyle that I have fallen in love with, and I want to do it till I'm 100 years old. Even on those days when I say, okay, I'm super busy at work and I'm, stressed and I'm tired and I've been training and racing a lot, or I've been giving a lot to everybody else, and I commit to that race. It's on the calendar, right? That's another way we're going to commit today. But the date is on the calendar, and that night, maybe I didn't get a full 8 hours of sleep, but I show up and the alarm goes off and I show up and I'm nervous. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do. I haven't done this in a while, or whatever the case is, the silly stuff that we say to ourselves when we're racing or right before the gun goes off. And then while I'm out there, I'm in the water, nothing else matters. Okay. All of my problems fall away and I'm in the present moment. And the more that I do that, the more joy that comes to my life. And of course, I like to race when my athletes are racing to help support them and also be an example, right? To be an example to them of what's truly possible. And I know it sounds intimidating. Oh my gosh, she's done 300 triathlons, but believe me, I did not start that way. I did not know how to swim. I borrowed a bike for my very first triathlon, did not know how to ride a bike at all. The last time I had ridden a bike, I actually had such a bad bike wreck that I had road rash everywhere, and I was deathly afraid of the bike. And then running, thankfully, that was my strength when I first started, because I was doing like 5Ks and adventure races with a mountain bike, and I felt safer on a mountain bike. But I just fell in love with the sport because I was like, wow, look what I can do with my body. Like, my body is freaking amazing. And I'm not saying that to be like conceited in any way, but you guys, our bodies are amazing. 3 sports in one, right? You can do anything you think you can if you choose to take those steps, right? To take step by step by step. Okay. And consistency is the key. So, I'm just sharing with you my why is because of how it makes me feel. And you definitely want to tie an emotion to your why. So I'd love to hear if anybody, if anybody has any emotions that they want to share about what it feels like to cross the finish line or what their big why is. Again, don't be shy. Okay, so Larry, I love this one too, because I've known Larry for a long time. Actually, he and I I think we were at one of the very first draft legal triathlons there was in Florida. And I love Larry because he always wears an Irish skirt or a Scottish kilt. That's what he does to the races. So I was always able to spot him everywhere. But his says, challenge myself, an excuse to race. Exactly, to train. So like sometimes if you don't have that date on the calendar of a race date, your excuse to train kind of goes out the window. Like there's no end date. There's nothing that you have to prepare for. So that's why choosing a race, paying for it, committing to it is going to help you be more accountable to yourself than just talking about it with me. And now's the time. So whether you're committing to a race in the next 6 weeks, the next 8 weeks, the next 12 weeks, the next 16 or 22 or 24 weeks, I want to know what your race is, what the distance is, and what the date is. Okay. So if you don't have any races on the calendar, there's a great website called trifind.com, TRIFIND.com. And you can pick your state. So you can make it as easy and simple as possible to pick a race in your area. You can also look up, I know there's a runner's like calendar out there for 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathon, but just look up, activity. Google, come on, you guys, there's no excuses as far as picking your next race. Jeremy, I'd love to hear what your next goal is. So another cool story is, Okay, so we talked about the dream, we talked about the commitment, right? And then there is the investment piece, right? There is an investment piece to triathlon, but it doesn't have to be so big. And I would love some of my experienced athletes that are maybe on this group chat right now on the Facebook Live with me to explain how they started. Because like I said, I started with a string bikini and a borrowed bike from my my brother-in-law and a pair of sneakers. That was my biggest investment, was the sneakers. And my favorite sneakers were Asics. So those are the ones that I always use until now. I have a different choice now, but you know, it was not that expensive for me to start in the sport. And I used the gym bikes to train, and I just borrowed the bike for the race itself. But we all start at a different level in triathlon. And I've had athletes that came and they did the bike on a city bike. They actually came to town and they did the South Beach Triathlon. They trained on a stationary bike in the gym. And when it came to race day, they did the whole bike on a city bike with one gear. I had another guy that trained for his Olympic distance triathlon, and he used a 3-gear bike that had a basket on it, and he completed the race, right? So there are no rules, okay? There are no rules to this. There's no limitations. And there are so many resources out there. You know, there's so many used bikes that you can get for amazing deals. And ideally, you can even start with a hybrid bike, or your, like I said, your friend's bike, or your brother-in-law's or sister-in-law's bike. So there's really no limitation to what's possible. Don't let the equipment factor like prevent you from taking the leap. So this is your homework, you guys. You got to know your why so that it can be your motivator, right? So what do you think? I want to ask a question. What do you think is the biggest motivator for anyone, humans? What is the biggest motivator? And you got, most of the time you have to think about your why, but we're not going there. It's actually a thing, something that you can do to help motivate yourself. Does anybody know? I love it. So Larry has a great story because he actually became a triathlete from losing a bet, right? So that was meant to be, because how long have you been a triathlete now, Larry? I think it's been like 20 years at least. And he's going to world championships, or I think it's national or world championships in a few weeks. Does anybody want to take a guess about what your biggest motivator is? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's action. Okay, so taking action, being here today is motivating. It's inspiring to hear other people's story, maybe even hearing my story, but also movement, right? So when you move, you release endorphins and you feel good. And when you start to feel good, your brain turns on. You start to get creative about what's possible for your own life, okay? And I will tell you, you know, I have seen so many people transform within the context of the sport of triathlon. They have lost weight. They have gained new friends. They have felt a camaraderie like they never knew before, right? So your why might change, right? It might be at first, maybe it is to lose weight or get healthy, but it's such an awesome way to do it because just like Larry, it was just an accident that he got into the sport, and now he's been doing it 20 years, right? So same with me, like who knew? I mean, I was working at a gym getting my master's in exercise physiology, and all the trainers in the gym, they're like, hey, there's a triathlon down the street in like a month. You guys want to train for it? And I was like, sure, let's do it, right? Total accident, and changed my life forever for the better. So your homework, let's review it. Dream big, right? Think about the commitment it's going to take. Be realistic with the amount of time you have. And if you don't have enough time right now, pick one of the 3 sports to start working on. And if you do feel like you have the time, start small. And if you are already in the sport and you want to go bigger and you've been putting it off, look and see, okay, well, maybe I can't do it right now, or in maybe January 1st, I'm going to commit. In those 6 months, I'm going to do my first Ironman by July, or whatever the case is. But if you don't dream big and be a little scared about it, your motivation isn't going to be there to get up in the morning. Also, the other thing that really helps motivation is having an accountability partner. So if you have a buddy that you're training with and they're showing up at 6 a.m. to train before work and you don't show up, believe me, they're going to let you know, right? Hey man, where were you? Hey woman, you were supposed to meet me there. I am upset, and you're going to show up the next time, not to disappoint them. You could also have an accountability group, right? So full circle coaching. And I'm so happy that you guys are a part of Triathlon Obsessed. This could be your support group right here to help you along the way. But having a person or a group to be accountable to is really, really important to help your commitment and help you achieve that goal. And then finally, you are going to think about maybe an investment piece that you need to, maybe you do need a bike. Maybe you have nothing right now. Start doing research, right? So your homework is to write your dream, your commitment, and I want you to have 3 action steps today. I want you to write down 3 action steps today that you're going to be taking to move you in the direction of your goal. So one action step could just be to sign up for the race. One could just be to look at the dates on the calendar and see what date appeals to you, what fits into your calendar, timeline, anything, right? So 3 action steps, just maybe making a decision to eat healthier, right? To have the energy to show up to actually train. All right, you guys. I think, okay, so tomorrow, just a quick heads up for tomorrow. Any other questions? And please share your stories. I love to hear about it. Okay, so tomorrow is going to be all about assessments. So we're going to assess where you are today. Like, are you on the couch, eating bonbons and enjoying beer and chips, watching football? Or have you started to move? Maybe you've done some yoga and you're doing strength training a couple times a week. Maybe you've done your first sprint triathlon and you're ready to go longer, right? Olympic, maybe you've done an Olympic and ready for 70.3, and maybe you're ready for an Ironman, right? So tomorrow is about assessing where you are as a triathlete or an athlete. And I'm going to refer to everybody here as athletes, because if you move, if you're a human being and you move, you're an athlete, okay? So we're going to assess where you are, and we're going to also talk about the importance of assessing where you are and ways that you can do that. And then we're going to also talk about how to use those assessments in your trajectory, in your plan to achieve your goal. All right, you guys, I am wishing you well. I hope that was fun. If you know anybody who needs some motivation and maybe wants to kickstart and end the year with a big bang, we still have time. So please refer our group, Triathlon Obsessed, to a friend. And I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning at 11 for day 2 of our performance prep protocol. All right, you guys, wishing you well. Have a great day. Bye.